Hello and welcome to Choices Global, production of First Assembly of God, Wortmanville, Georgetown, Guyana. As we continue to cultivate conversations pertinent to nation building, today we will be continuing our discourse on culture and diversity, forging one Guyanese identity. Our panelists remain the same, and they are Dr. Marcel Hudson, an educator for over 30 years. He possesses a degree in sociology, the author of two books, and currently serves as our nation's Chief Education Officer. Kurt Kerbin, security, project management, and administration professional residing in Switzerland. Siobhan Corbin, a finance expert and FCCA, working with a global financing institution also in Switzerland. Martin Messiah, a digital marketing consultant with a global footprint. Limar Williams, a University of the West Indies law graduate and a Caribbean personality. And yours truly, Samantha Edwards, your moderator. Panelists, welcome. During our last episode, the panelists commenced the discussion on culture and diversity, forging one Guyanese unity. They touched on issues such as the role of NGOs. They shared experiences from Geneva and our education, the role our education system plays in fostering national unity. So today we will continue along the same path, adding some more interesting topics to the discussion. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get right into it. And I would like to start on a positive note this afternoon. What are some cultural practices or positives that we can highlight to our viewers that is synonymous with Guyana? And I will start us off. I will ask Dr. Hudson to start us off.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Um, Guyana is noted, and I think I heard it from you. Guyana is noted for being hospitable. The people, hospitality is one of the big things for Guyana. I think it was you mentioned that we would have persons sleep in our beds while we sleep on the floor if they're visiting, if we don't have space. And so, one of the things we do sometimes as a people, we go out of our way to make sure that people are comfortable, especially people who come from abroad and come amongst us to spend time. We are also noted for doing well in the creative and the performing arts. Have you ever looked at our National Dance School, for example, the kind of products that they produce, the kind of performances in drama, in dance, verse speaking, poetry? It's amazing how, when we take to the stage, how we could actually cause people to gravitate towards us because of how we operate, how we conduct ourselves as it relates to the creative and performing arts. What about our wildlife? We've heard people come to Guyana and they've gone into the interior. They've talked about our birds, the jaguar, the kanji pheasant, and our wildlife. It's amazing. I've seen people from different countries. They come on those Land Rovers and with the seats projected up in the air so they could sit and view the wildlife, view the Amazon forest, and so on. And so all of those things encompass part of our culture. What about our foods? There are persons who come to Guyana and they latched on to our food. There's some persons who've never eaten curry roti in their entire life, but when they came here, they had the curry roti, pepper pot, cook up rice, man fried shark with chips and so on. Look, in terms of our foods and all the different races, For me, I look forward to garlic pork Christmas time. And let me tell you something, I fell in love so much with it that um, sometimes during the some part of the year, it might be the third or fourth month, I go back to the garlic pork and so on. So we our cuisine. So we are noted for good things, as a people. And so sometimes we don't talk and we don't celebrate some of these things. But we have a rich cultural heritage in many respects.
Martin or Limar?
I think that in Guyana we have a culture of apprenticeship, in different parts of our society. For example, my mechanic, his son learned the business from him, and he's practiced that over the years. Not only that, they've been able to bring in their different family members into different aspects of the business. The same thing applies to some of the other persons that work along with me, whether it's carpentry, whether it's these different skilled areas. There's an understanding that apart from the traditional route for education, like maybe going off to TI or going off to university, there's an aspect of culture where there's that transfer and impartation of skills based knowledge. That's one I'd like to highlight. The next one is financial literacy. Right, many people might know about Baksan, and but they mightn't see that connection between it being as a traditional perspective on financial literacy, where they're able to help different persons in the community raise money in a trust-based financial system in a way that allows them to grow and develop, not only as an individual but as a part of a community as a whole. And I think Guyana also has another aspect of culture when it comes to economics, where there's a kind of a family structure, an extended family structure, or may I could say it better as maybe a support network in some of our enclaves across the country, where resources are shared based on the interest and the passion of the different members. And what you would see here, an example of this is like if somebody's son wants to buy a truck or to maybe do a son business or something like that, they would go to a family member, probably an uncle or grandfather or something like that, and they'd say, I need this, and but I don't have enough resources, or it might not even be a blood relative. This is the importance of culture, right? Where there are persons who might not be your blood relatives, but they have that sort of connection with you and their family, and they understand what's going on. So they're willing to offer special preferential rates. For example, they might give you a truck on credit if the business is large enough and tell you to pay it back over the years. Or they would even give you the truck and say, look, you help me out, I can help you out. And you can ship sand for me, but you can give me a special rate for that. So I think these are aspects of our culture that stand out. Even when you compare it to cultures in the U.S., cultures in China. It's a very unique aspect of Guyanese culture. So we have a nature of wanting to come together and work together in order for us to grow and develop as a people.
Limar,
Yeah,
before
I
you
love.
jump in, hold Limar. Martin, I cannot allow you to, or the program to go on without you explaining in 30 seconds what is box hand. We are all Guyanese, so we would be familiar, but for the benefit of our global audience, 30 seconds.
Well, I'm not an expert, but usually
In
you
your
appoint
own
someone who
words.
would be there. Yeah, you normally appoint someone who would be your financial consultant, somebody that you trust, who you'd give them a small fee, and they would be the ones who'd be in charge of collecting the money and keeping it in escrow. So, in other words, every month, five people agree that they'll throw a box hand. They find somebody, and these box hands could be maybe 100 US, it could be 500 US if you're a big boy, 5,000 US, and they throw it together. And every month, one person gets the full amount. So if it's five of you throwing $1,000, that means at the end of the month somebody gets $5,000, and it goes around and around until everybody is able to benefit from that.
Go right ahead, Limar.
Yeah, thank you, Samantha. Something that I really love about Guyana, and if you'll permit me, I want to put this aspect of our culture under an umbrella. I'd like to call it competitive spirit. Um, if you look at our athletes in relation in the context of sports, like we have our athletes, we have a lot of athletes in the various sporting disciplines. And for instance, Chelsea, Shamar, Emmanuel, the Fernandes in the various sports. And we are extremely competitive, even with our limited resources in certain cases. We just go out and we perform to the best of our ability, and we perform anytime. Like for instance, even at at law school, for example, um, they usually say, "Oh, the Guyanese are very competitive. um, why y'all competing? Because we don't like lose. We don't lose. We never lose. You know, every year for the CPL is always we year. But we always go out and compete. And another thing that I really love about our culture in relation to education, and this is something that I've always heard. I'm here on Sir Arthur Lewis Hall at the University of the West Indies, and I've had the privilege of meeting people from various other countries. And one of the things my friend from the Bahamas usually say is that there's a lot of Guyanese teachers in the Bahamas, and our education quality is something that is at the top level throughout the Caribbean. Like you always hear about Guyanese writing a lot of subjects and excelling in them. You always hear about the quality and the standard of our education being one of the best in the world, because I usually hear people from my communication studies teacher, he came from Botswana, and he was saying that people in there we're talking about the Guyanese teachers and the level of education. So that's something that I really, really appreciate about Guyana. You know, irrespective of where you come from or what you do, we always pride ourselves in being the smartest or the most brilliant, wherever we go.
In our last episode, we mentioned institutions such as NGOs, the private sector, and we touched a little on governments. But I want to hear your thoughts on family and the role they play in fostering cultural diversity and oneness. I, Kurt, Siobhan, or Dr. Hudson, considering you are all parents, what are your thoughts? Either of you can jump in.
I let Siobhan go with this one.
Okay,
Well, I
mommy.
think the I think the role of the family is the initial unit that passes on values to children. And Dr. Hudson referenced in the first program. So those who haven't watched the earlier episode, this is your opportunity or the hint. And so Dr. Hudson spoke about integrity and character. Integrity meaning wholeness of an individual, and character meaning consistency of behavior. And so I believe that the family unit plays an important part in social cohesion and passing on culture and values. And so you find, for example, our children operating in different environments, both in Guyana and in Europe. You find that they have absorbed some of the European values of dignity and human rights and equality. And so sometimes the jokes that we would make back home in Guyana, which are considered light jokes concerning ethnicity, our children would tell us that this is being help me out, Kurt, they would say that we are being biased or we are not racially sensitive in the comments we make. In addition to that, when you operate on the global stage, you then realize that you don't see every Asian person as Chinese because there are several Asian countries. And so these are some of the sensitivities that we've discussed as a family, even with our youngest child who is just 6 years old. So I'll stop there, but just reiterating that those values of integrity and consistency of character are birthed in the home. And then naturally it spreads out to the next level of society, which is the community, and where you would find not only NGOs, but faith based organizations. I leave that there for now, Samantha.
Kurt or Hudson, two daddies
Oh,
in our midst.
yes, thank you, Samantha. Families do have a critical role to play in nurturing, in shaping. Um, Parents or even aunts, uncles, and grandmothers, they're the first. That's where children learn how to behave. That's where education is forged. That's where learning is done on the kitchen floor, in the living room, lying on the bed. Our manual for living, the manual that I use for life, or that's called the Bible, it shares all of that. But it begins with the family, the first teaching home. I remember when we were back in Guyana, our twin boys, one of them, they came and they told us, teacher said something, and we had to correct that. The teacher was the one, he or she, I think it was a female. They were saying something that we did not agree with, so we had to correct that. We said, okay, teacher has the right to teach you so and so. However, your parents also know what is best for you, and we will never lead you astray. So we had to make that correction, and that's what families are there for, to teach you must not lie, always take responsibility, respect others, play with everyone, share. Sharing is extremely important. I think in the last program, Dr. Hudson spoke about team spirit, or Siobhan spoke about team spirit or teamwork, and these things are taught firstly in the home. A child learns to socialize in the home. If if for some reason or the other, the father, mother, aunt, uncle, grandparent, they they're so busy that they cannot teach the child these simple values that will aid them throughout life, not only in school but throughout life. Then when they come out into society, then the police will have to be the one instilling values, and the police will not have the time nor the patience to instill values like a parent or a family member would. The only values the police will implement is locking you up and hoping that you will change by being incarcerated. So, Samantha, families are the primary caregivers, families are the first teachers, families are the best teachers. Let's inculcate culture beginning with the family. Once we do this and we send them off into the world, we have excellent citizens in Guyana and the world, and across the world.
To
Yes,
the
Dr. Hudson, go
discussion.
right ahead.
Yeah. I just would like to join with the other two presenters to say that the family is described as the basic unit of society. Within that context, it is where nurturing takes place. As a matter of fact, from families, we have neighborhoods, neighborhoods, we have communities, communities, we have a society. And so it just goes to show how powerful a family is. As Kurt mentioned, it is where the concept of socialization takes place. Socialization, it's a concept, it's not socializing. Socializing, it's different. That has to do with meeting people and if you want to throw a party and so on. That's what socialization is, a concept. And as a concept, it speaks to learning. Learning that begins from the time you were born and it ends in the grave, the sociologist will tell you. You keep learning until the day you die. Now, it is important that within that context, that teaching of, of solid values and attitudes, or what we want to call core values like love, respect, hard work, those kinds of core values, where you recognize the collaboration or cooperation, if you will. Those things are important. And when families begin to function in that way, they produce, as we heard, I think it's Siobhan, they produce rounded children, children who will understand. Look, when you tell your child in terms of the teaching process, do not judge people by the texture of the hair or the color of the skin or where they came from, the community for which they're viewed, or what might be the racial background, but judge them from the content of their character. If a man is a good man, he's a good man and he should be treated accordingly. If a man is bad, he must be treated accordingly too. You don't gravitate. My father taught me at a very tender age before I left the school. He said, learn as much as you can. Stay away from bad company. He did not pointed out to me the people who are bad, what color they are and what they look like. He said, once they're bad company, people who will lead you astray, people who will cause you to do things contrary to what you should do as a good human being. And so those values, if those values keep, if there's an inculcation of those values in our children at a very tender age, we could see children do not steal. You must not become a bandit. You don't rob people and snatch anything from people. You don't go in people's house. You start to teach those things at a very fundamental stage. Love people regardless of however they look, whether they have a disability. Don't laugh at people. These are things that families need to concentrate on if we're going to turn around and change the status quo in this country and further field as we begin to think these things. So family is very important and critical to the transformation process. Where there are faulty families, you will see faults coming out. And that's why it is important that we address, we get the family right, because that is the foundation of every society.
As all the parents spoke, I remember as a child, and this is also Guyanese culture, where we're taught how to respect our elders. So it would be inappropriate for me to address Dr. Hudson by his first name or Kurt because you are older than him. I travel to other countries, however, I not notice that, and immediately it dawned on me that that is a culture that we have where our children show respect for the elders by either they're addressing them by their titles, as in doctor, or we say Uncle Kurt or Auntie Siobhan, and an adult knows that the child is being respectful. So with that, I love how you really brought in from your experiences as parents. I would like to turn to another institution which we touched a little on our last episode, but we did not dissect, which is the political arena. And as Dr. Hudson spoke, I remembered a quote by Kofi Annan reads, we may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we belong to one race. As politicians, both sides of the house, government and opposition, what are some initiatives that you think they can promote or add to what they're already doing to foster oneness in Guyana?
Yeah, I think one great way for us to approach this would be to understand that politics or politicians or the people who are there, it's just a tool for management, for national administration, you know? So this structure was created so that it can maximize the benefit for the people that were there that are within a specific country. So rather than looking at them, some of us may look at them as in an adversarial way. Some of us may look at them as friendly and all of that. But I think more importantly is that we should strive to understand the important role that the political arena plays in unifying the country, and also when it comes to national development. How we answer that question about making Guyana great. My grandfather used to tell me that he used to tell me about Kaitro Falls. He said that if Guyana could only work together, we could make we could like the whole of Guyana by putting a hydropower plant by Kaitro Falls. And I thought about that question for years. And what I realized is that he didn't really want to put a hydropower plant by Kaitro Falls. What he wanted to do was to provide cheap electricity to the people of Guyana. So I think that as we look at this question about how do we develop Guyana, sometimes we have to use strategies that are more aligned with a specific goal than being married to very specific strategies. So in the political arena, what I would advise persons across Guyana is to engage with the process. Make the processes better. If you don't like what's being done, find out how you could change the process. If there are things that are being done or areas that are issues that are affecting you, speak up. Speak up. Those persons who are in positions to advocate in a way that is pragmatic, in a way that allows you to really represent and advocate for the people who are affected by different policies. And I think also it's important for us to understand and have a sense of openness. And I'll give this an example. So I was in a meeting recently, and when I listened to how someone was speaking in the meeting, I realized that what they're saying and what they mean to say are two completely different things. So, despite it coming across as offensive because of the ways that they might have worded or the sort of mannerisms they might have used to communicate the idea, I thought that what they had intended to communicate was something that was important. So, rather than immediately take offense to how it was said, I decided to clarify the point that was being made in a way that makes it clear that both of us are thinking along the same lines. So I think that is the position that we should take. If you're in a position to develop Guyana, ensure that you develop strategies or come up with strategies that bring benefits to as many persons as possible and give them the ability to push the country forward. If you're in a position to advocate to persons who are affected by different issues, don't just stand up and celebrate your title. Ensure that you advocate effectively and efficiently, not necessarily aggressively, in order to get the system to move forward.
Siobhan, you want to
And
jump in
I
here? You've been.
also I also would
Oh,
like to speak to consultation as it relates to to politics. I think I like the term Martin coined. The politicians are there, or leaders are there to manage our nation. I love that, Martin. Excellent. And it is so. I had it a little bit narrower. I use the boardroom reference, where the board of directors are appointed, and once they don't perform, they're removed, and a new board of directors are appointed. But I like the management, the national management format you mentioned. I would like to see, excuse me, more consultation across the spectrum again, Martin. Governmental opposition, consult, pardon, consult the people more in decision making. Our recent experience is once, pardon me, the weather is changing, so the my throat is acting up. You know, it's going to the cool season in Switzerland here. So, pardon my clearing of the throat so frequently. Um, Once a decision is not made, the citizens of Switzerland have to vote. Every quarter, is a votation or a voting period for something that has to be done nationally. The citizens have their say. We do not have that system, but we have the consultation system. And I would like to see a wider consultation. And yes, it happens. As we did at the beginning of the program, we celebrated what is good about Guyana. And yes, we do consult. And sometimes when the consultation is being done, the citizens refuse to go. And when a decision is made, we complain. But we need to stop that. That is also another part of our culture. Oh, we don't have time to go and discuss. We have to get this dollar. But it's your life, it is your country. You have a say in what management does with your country, with your life, because eventually it will affect you. So consultation, and the people be going to those consultations, and the leaders, government and opposition, listening to what the people have to say and acting on that, and not necessarily, as Martin said, sticking to your program, but ensure the program that you have benefits most, if not all. Most, if not all, because I'm sure someone will be disappointed. It's highly likely we will please everyone. That is a given as well. That is understood. That is accepted. So when those things do occur, it's not for us to jump on the rooftop and scream and create. Everyone cannot be happy and everyone would not agree. I think in the last program, someone mentioned about the beauty of this world that God created is that we're all not of the same color. We're all not of the same texture of hair. You know, there's diversity, and we need to celebrate that diversity. So when things are not going in your favor, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone does not like you, or they chose to ignore you. But consultation, I would like to see more consultation as it relates to the political aspect, Madam Moderator.
thank you so much, Samantha. I think just a short point. I think we have a responsibility to make pro-Guyana decisions as politicians, both in the political arena, whether on the government or on the opposition side. So, as a young person, I've always looked at our policy, and I fail to see policy continuity on both sides of the political spectrum. And for us to move forward as a nation, I think we have a responsibility to mature and to make pro Guyana decisions. So there are certain things that are, for example, constitutionally required that both sides, the government and the opposition, would need to agree for certain appointments, for instance. And as someone from Guyana, I've seen other countries and islands in the Caribbean make a simple appointment, let's say for a chief justice, for example, and most of our highest offices they have acting and AG behind it. And if we want to move forward with a one Guyana, a unified Guyana, like decisions like that from a young person's perspective, I would love to see confirmed offices as opposed to just acting. So we can just make mature pro Guyana decisions as our responsibility as politicians.
The whole issue of I would like to point out that I think part of the psyche of every politician, the three words I like to use, and they are Greek in origin. One is kerygma, which speaks to speaking, proclamation. The other one is koinonia, which speaks to empowerment. And the last one is diaconia, which speaks to service. Now, when you go into the realm of politics, it's more than just proclamation because there are people who say things, but whatever you say, you will do for people, you must do. And so it's not just talking so you could get power, but when you're there, are you doing what you say you will do for people? And that's the whole issue of charisma. The other thing is empowerment. Are you do you want to see the people grow, the people develop, and are you service oriented, or you just vex all the time? You see, you don't have to be, as long as you're in politics, you don't have to be in government to do these things. To serve, to empower, and to speak. And if that is your orientation, a big thing that will happen is collaboration. And what I would hope to see in the future is where I'm picking up my bat and walk away because I ain't batting, it's not me batting now, so I walking away. So how could you still inject what you know to the benefit of the people? And this could happen on any side of the divide. And so charisma, koinonia, and diaconios. And I think of the biggest word in all of that is service. You are a servant, not to be served, but you are a servant.
Siobhan, 30 seconds.
For me, I want to say that I want to first posit a challenge. In Guyana, we have a culture of probing conflict rather than resolution. And so I would want to challenge that when we come to the political space, we are not promoting our leaders to politic, but rather to govern. And so at times, this means expanding the pie so that your priorities are achieved, but also the priorities of others. And if I may piggyback on what Dr. Hudson has just said, there must be an enshrined element of leadership, and I would even, of service rather, and I would even say servant leadership. And when we look at models across the world, what we see, again, as I said before, is there is a consistency. Let me leave one nugget with us as a nation. I work for an international organization that just raised 14 billion for the next 3 years. President Biden and the US government by themselves pledged six of that 14 billion. And I can assure you that when the government changes, if it ever changes, that 6 billion is not removed. There is consistency and continuity. And so, as Dr. Hudson said earlier, we must say what we mean and mean what we say. And we must understand that we are not here to politic or to speak and proclaim, but we are rather here to govern by empowering and serving the people that we are meant to lead.
Thank you. We are out of time. Panelists, you have done a splendid job Today, thank you for availing yourselves and delivering such insightful perspectives. Thank you to our viewers for joining us for our final episode on the topic of culture and diversity. Please keep in touch with us at faogw.org and our YouTube channel, Choices Global. Join us again on November 6th, 2022. Until we meet again, stay safe.